Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Naked at Sunrise. Another episode, another journey of faith, vulnerability, and authenticity, all capped with victory. Who is here this morning and where are you joining us from? I see Muji from the UK. I see Esther from Abuja. Yes, of course, my sister Rode from Lagos, right? Who else is in with us? I see Prof. Iso from the UK as well. Please identify yourself, where you're coming from, why you're joining us today, and please remember to share and remember to like. Today's episode, as usual, promises to be enlightening. It's going to be fun, and it's going to definitely give you something to think about. So please, as you join us, just be willing to share and share and share. Hi, Sister Folashede, good morning. God bless you. Hey, Sister T, how are you doing? From the UK as well. Oh, all my UK people, you're showing up because your sister is on today, right? Hi, Sister Benevolent from Abuja or Nasarawa. Thank you for joining us. God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Please remember to share and remember to like. Naked at Sunrise, naked at sunrise, naked at sunrise. Our God is kind and our God is faithful. We promise to have so much fun today. And just again to sit down and think about what God says in His Word. Remember that our foundational scripture for naked at sunrise is Genesis 31. And I'm going to go to it shortly. Genesis 31, verse number 32. Genesis 31, verse number 32 in the New King James translation. It says, just give me a moment, please. Sorry, it's Genesis 32, verse 31. If you read verse 30 and 31 of Genesis 32, it says, so Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Just as it crossed over Peniel, the sun rose on him, and he limped on his limp. Whenever you see a child of God on the streets, maybe online, maybe in their church, wherever they have authority and dominion and they are displayed, they are put on display by God. 80% of the time, we think that they have their lives perfect, and that each one of them has never had to go through anything. So we think about us and we think we're the ones that have been dealt the short hand of the stick. And that's where envy comes from, and that's why we all want to be the other person. But if you look at the Bible, every single person in the Bible, not one, had a perfect life. Yet God used them and God breathed upon their lives and their situations in the peculiar way He wanted to deal with them. Today we have my sister Ola Uche in the house, and Ola is many things, many things. But if I had to read a bio, which I'm tempted to read because, when I met Ola and we started to work together, it seemed to me that Ola had no clue how intimidating she is. So for that reason, I'm trying to, what's the word? I'm going to read her bio today so that some of you would understand why this woman, Ola is a lawyer with a Bachelor's of Laws degree, LLB from the University of Jos, an LLM from King's College, University of London. She was called to the Nigerian bar in 1991 and started her career as a research fellow of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Victoria Island, Lagos. She previously had worked at Diamond Bank Limited, Lagos, Nigeria, as an administrative officer. Before taking a career break to care for her son with special needs, pursuing her interest in people with special needs, she obtained a postgraduate diploma in occupational therapy from London South Bank University. She served on the board of governors of Manor School and Parry House School, two special need educational needs schools in London, United Kingdom. Ola is a skilled administrator and project manager with a keen eye for detail. She's currently based in London, where she's been managing a property portfolio for over 10 years. She's an avid swimmer and enjoys Zumba, jigsaw puzzles, reading, walking, and traveling in her spare time. Ola is the mother of 4 lovely children and 3 grandchildren. What? Please help me to make welcome this morning my sister, my friend, Ola Uche. And then we will get right into today's conversation. Hey, Ola.
Good morning, Pastor B. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Excellent. So finally, we found our way to naked and sunrise. We have so much to talk about in such little time, so we'll just dive into it. Ola, tell us about yourself. What did we not read about you in the bio, or what in the bio would you like to expatiate on?
I think what for me, one thing I would like to expatiate on is the fact that whatever happens in terms of how life goes, you just have to keep adapting. So I started out with law and then adapted into banking. From banking, I now found myself in a situation where I had a special needs son and had to then venture into that area and then now look for a way of having an income. So I then ventured into property management. So just to continue adapting to whatever life throws at you, to find a way to keep adapting, keep standing, keep moving. My late mom used to call me a reed, which she said whatever happens, that however life blows me, I always seem to get back up. That so she would call me her reed. So that's what I bear in mind, that you have to always be like that reed. Whatever life throws and blows, after the storm, you bounce back up.
Yeah, thank you. So, trust you to summarize, but tell us, how did this journey begin? But I hear you, of course, keep adapting, and please share with us some of the things that would make someone on listening and watching this morning understand why Ola, because the portfolio looks so brilliant. It sounds so brilliant, and your life is the life everybody wants to have today, because we're highlighting your life. But tell me, what were the things? What are the lemons that were thrown? How did you make lemonade in the proverbial way? And just share with us what you're comfortable to share, please.
Okay, in terms of lemons, I started out, got married quite young, had my first son, and lived in London at the time. I mean, I was born in London, lived in Nairobi, Nigeria, and back to London. So kind of lived all over the place. And anyway, so at the time my first son was born, I was back living in London, and then relocated to Nigeria with my husband, and had my second son. And at that time, I was working at the Institute of International Affairs, and so after, by the time as time progressed, I see that he was not meeting his milestones. Because I had an older son, I had, a basis for comparison, and so eventually went to a pediatrician, and he was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because at that time he was literally bouncing off the walls. He was quite hyperactive, and he was prescribed Ritalin, and I thought, okay, let's see how that works. And so time continued to progress, and I continued to be concerned. And as he was approaching 5, I thought then the Nigerian system is not really going to have the support for him. And I wasn't quite 100% sure of what was wrong. He had started out, he had built up a vocabulary, so he was quite difficult to place, because he had a vocabulary. He started off with the usual mama, dada, juice, food, milk, things like that. and he progressed to 2 words, one juice, one carry me, but he wasn't kind of progressing to phrases and the way a child will progress, especially since I had one to compare, so to speak. And people were like, oh, some people are like that, some children are like that, and he will catch up with time, don't worry. But at the end of the day, your mom instinct is there. And so I spoke to, at the time, my older son's headmistress, Mrs. Shashobon of Corona, and I said, these are my concerns. And she had said, I had said I wanted to take him to London for proper assessment, and she said that's a good idea. So took him to London, they assessed him, they were like, look, he needs input, educational input, he needs some speech therapy, he would need maybe occupational therapy, he would need the kind of support. I had prayed it was going to be like a magic pill, and he would take it and come back and be fine. And but I could see it wasn't going to be a sprint. It was more like a marathon. So I decided the best thing to do would be to relocate, to bring him to let him be in the British system, because I'm a dual national. So and so is he. So then made up my mind, spoke to my husband. We sold what we could and came to London. Luckily, it was a soft landing, in the sense that my family home was there for us to use as a launch pad to look for our own place to live. But then that was the easiest bit of the relocation. Then we started the journey of looking for a school to put him in, and what kind of school would be suitable. I didn't really know anything about special needs, about how it worked. So I had to put him in a mainstream school, and he was struggling. He couldn't cope. And then I was told, oh, that you need to apply to the local education authority, which is like the local borough, to find out what kind of support the school will give him. And so it was a real struggle, because my older son was in one school, he was in another. He was literally bouncing. You'd have to hold his hand, trying to do the school run so he doesn't run off and everything. And this particular day, I believe that sometimes God puts people in your path for reasons, and sometimes, unless you say something, you wouldn't know who he's put in your path. So particular day, I was at the school gate waiting to pick him up, and I met this lady, and I was chatting with her, and I said, look, he's had all these assessments, I don't really know, we're just talking. And she then said, oh, she's a speech therapist. And I said, oh, funny enough, he actually has had a speech therapy assessment, and I'm waiting for the outcome. And she said, oh, actually, not only is she a speech therapist, but that she's a speech therapist at a special school. So I said, oh, actually, I've been trying to find how to get into the system, and could you give him some sessions while I'm waiting on the official assessment? And she said, okay. So she then took him on for some private speech therapy, and after a few sessions, he said, you know what, I'll be better off seeing him more frequently if he comes to a school like mine, like where I am. And I said, how do I get in?
Let me stop you there for a bit, because I need to highlight this for those who are watching, that even in that place where you were feeling overwhelmed, you were juggling the balls, you were trying to ensure that your child got the care that they wanted, you ran into someone at the school gate where you were waiting for your child to come out. And in striking a conversation, you found out that she had answers for that stage of life that you were in. Now, as Africans, what they tell us to do is to hide those things. We don't tell people what we're going through. As a matter of fact, because I'm in ministry, I've lived through a couple of families at least who had children who were special needs, and those children never got out of the house. They were not allowed outside of the house until I think one of them died. Like children were not practically not allowed to leave because the parents felt like it was a failing that they had a child who was special needs. And please don't tell me if they were educated. These were educated people. Their failing in their mind came from the fact that how can believers have children who are like this? So just for everyone who is listening to see that, I say it all the time, and I say it in one of the most simplistic ways ever, that unless you tell me you have a headache, you never know that I have analgesic pills in my bag. Because I'm carrying my bag, you have no idea what tricks I have inside it. And if you have a headache and you pretend around me that you're fine, I would assume that you are fine. Please go on, Ola. I just wanted to highlight that because as I learn, I would highlight so that others can go and can pick it up.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor B. So yes, she then suggested to me that why you go through what's a process which is called the statementing process, which means that the local authority assesses the child and then decides what sort of school. Because all along I was thinking, let me just get him some additional help in a mainstream school. And she was like, no, he will get better help in a special school. And so I then went through the process with the local authority. He was assessed by a speech. And it then opened my eyes into the number of professionals that you have to liaise with. So he had, if I had to think of he had a speech therapy assessment, he had occupational therapy assessment, he was seen by a child psychiatrist. Then apart from those professionals, sometimes you'll come in contact with others. You would have obviously your pediatrician, your GP or your doctor, your social worker, and then sometimes I'll get into that further down the line, solicitors, barristers, parent advocates. So it's a whole team of people that you'd have to kind of rely on for support. So anyways, luckily we went through the process and he got into this school. And I was grateful for that because she could have just said, let me just keep on giving this child private therapy. It's better for my pocket. But she's like, I can help him as part of the system, and you're entitled to it by law, and you don't have to pay for it. So he got in there, and one of my major concerns had been his inability to read, because he was so hyperactive that he just could not. To read, you need to be able to sit down for long enough to even identify the letters of the alphabet. And they had said to me at one point that some kids with special needs will just never be able to read. You just have to accept that. And I was like, no, I believe he wants to read because he loves cartooning. And he would draw these cartoons and he would write letters underneath them. And it wouldn't be a word, but it would be letters. And I'm like, he wants to identify, he wants to kind of write what he's drawing. And so this lady was called Jackie, the speech therapist, she said, okay, that she would use a particular system to teach him how to read, which is slightly different from the way you would normally learn to read, which is you'd identify the letters, then you'd learn the sound, then you'd blend the sound. So if it's the word cat, you say ka, ah, ta, then you say ka, ah, which will make ka. So it's a new word, then cat, then that's called blending. And he struggled to blend. And she then used a method called cued articulation, which almost teaches you the sound, but through sight. So you can see where the sound is coming from, the part of your mouth where the sound is coming from. And that just cracked it. And he, in under a year, she taught him how to read. And that was something I was told he would never be able to do. And not only did he read, he would then do his cartoons, he would write what they were, and he calmed down because he was no longer as hyperactive and as frustrated, because he could express himself better. So in a short space of time, he then outgrew the school, because he was now improving and got to the point where they were having meetings. They were like, he really he's kind of beyond, he's better than his peers. So we need to move him to an environment where he could have speech and language support as opposed to, general support. And then I started looking for, and I thought, oh gosh, here we go again. But then started looking for another school and found a school which was out of my borough, which is usually very difficult because that means special schools are owned by the boroughs or owned by charities or private, and they are extremely expensive. So, because obviously they're specialized, classes are smaller, teachers are more specialized. And luckily the borough was very receptive, and they agreed to fund this school, which was out of their borough, meaning that they had to not only pay the school fees, but they had to provide transport, a car, a driver, and an escort to take him to and from school every day. So I was grateful to God. That was good. We did that. And again, I got to the stage where I thought, okay, things are relatively calm. I'm sort of getting into a pattern. I hadn't been able to go into legal work as I had thought, because it was really, looking after him was a full-time job and a half. And I was sad that aspect could not be explored. But obviously I had to face what was in front of me. And but I then thought, okay, I liked the occupation. He'd done a lot of occupational therapy, and I thought this is something I can do. And then I did a postgraduate diploma in that to understand it a bit better. And I thought, okay, I can have that in my bag. I can decide I want to go into that area in the future. And things coasted along fine until we moved house out of the borough. And then my new borough now said I should send him to a school close by, that they were not going to fund this school he was in, where he was doing so well. And I was like, what are my options? And they said, you either put him in the school we want you to put him in, which was a generic school, which would really set him back, or you pay for the school yourself, which was going to be what I could not afford. They said, or you go to a tribunal called a special needs tribunal, which is like a court for education, and make a case. And I thought, how do you do that? You'd have to consult the parent advocacy groups, consult a solicitor, get a barrister, because it's. And then I was like, okay, I can do that. I studied law. I'll prepare the paperwork. It'll be cheaper for me. So I had to then prepare the case for myself. I had to hire my own speech therapist, occupational therapist, because the borough was going to put up a huge fight. They said there was an unwritten rule that children will not go out of borough because they don't want to fund it. So I prepared all the documentation, got my own team, and they fought hard. They had their team of professionals who said this is where he should go, and I had my team saying this is where he should go.
Can I cut in again?
Yeah.
So things, for starters, it seems like this is not, it seems, I can tell that this is, like you said, a job and a half.
Yeah.
So, but you had other children in this time, and here you're focused on the one child and going through all of this. 2 questions quickly, because you're very articulate, and if I let you, I know you go all that straight line until you get where you need to go, and then I would have a robust picture, that I want us to have.
Yes.
So think about it and tell me, in this time, your older son, the other children you've had, after him, and the God place, has this playing out in your family? What's the impact of this journey on your family? Because if we just continue on this path of this is what you had to deal with, it's not the only life you have. You are still a wife, you are still a mother, you are still a daughter, you are a sister, and there were so many other parts of you. Which parts of you did you have to step down? Which parts of you did you have to lean on others to support you from? Which parts of you did you have to say, absolutely, I cannot give this up? How did this impact upon the empire of Ola, or the kingdom of Ola? How did this impact?
I think the person who I had to give up on was probably myself, because I had to kind of work extra hard. My older son the relocation was hard on him because obviously he was settled in school and he had his friends and all of that. And but he's sometimes, you know, he's such a blessing. You know, he was so helpful in terms of, you know, if I when we go out, you know, if Ginny runs off, he would run after him to bring him back. You know, where by the time I had my daughter, and I'll be pushing the buggy and he would run off, and he, you know, sometimes, you know, you don't know, do I leave the buggy and chase him? Do I, you know, who do I hold? The older son would hold the buggy. I would run after him. So it was difficult. It was difficult. And then of course I had my parents. But at that time they were not they were old, but not as old as in their 80s. So they were quite supportive. They were quite helpful. They kept encouraging me. And of course I had my sisters, my sissies, as I call them. You know, they have always been my backbone. They're always there for me. I call on them. This is what I'm going through. So I had that support in terms of my family. I don't know where I would have been without them. They were really supportive. They were really helpful, and continue to be supportive, continue to be helpful. So yes, it was hard in that regard. I haven't talked about my husband much because after we relocated, and it wasn't long down the line that cracks began to appear in the marriage. And before you knew it, I was now a single parent. So not only was I dealing with...
So now you had to deal with this. I don't want to go, because remember that I'm Naked on Sunrise. We don't tell the stories of other people. Yes. We want to focus on our own stories, and we want to share our own experiences. So I'm not exactly interested in how that happened. We now know that that happened. But how do you go from a two-parent situation, raising 4 children, one of them special needs, with all of these many things, having to go to a tribunal just so that you can get care for your child? And then now, moving from a two-parent situation to a single-parent situation, and you had to keep it going. Did you keep it going, or did you fall apart?
I think falling apart was almost like a luxury. To fall apart was a luxury. I couldn't fall apart because of what was at stake. If I didn't have the children, I might have, but you know, for me, falling apart was a luxury. It wasn't an option that one could take. So I had to, I had to keep going. As hard as it was, I had to keep going. I prepared the documents for the tribunal and all of this, looking after the children, doing everything, and got to the tribunal, presented the case, and I won the case. And this was, yes, I won the case, and they ordered that he should remain in the school, and the borough should fund his transport to and from school. So yes, I learned a lot about the process, even in terms of what you can, because they got to the stage where, you know, they said they only have a duty to provide a good education. They don't have a duty to provide the best education, you know. So even what is good, what is best, what is the right fit. So you have to as a parent, and especially as a parent of a special needs child, you have to learn a lot. You learn on the job. It's something that's alien to you. They could have said, sorry, this is where he goes, and I'll be like, that's what they said. This is how God wants it, you know. But you've got to, I'm thankful that I'm somebody who's very organized. I'm very analytical, and I'm very methodological. What was the word again? So I tend to look at something and I decide, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. These are the steps that I need to take. And that helps to be very organized. You can't be scatty when you're in that sort of situation. But I think it's the fact that you can't give up, because giving up means who is going to look after the children? Is social services going to take over? So when you're faced with
Wait, Ola, but I need to keep interjecting. That's why I'm seated on this side of the divide. Yes. So for someone who is probably going through this, or is just being introduced to this kind of chaotic life, What I've heard today is that this person must find a rhythm and a sense of order within which they will operate. So you can't go through this winging it, right?
No, no.
You cannot wing it. So you have to have a plan. As in, every day you wake up, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. This is what Chini needs. This is what Oshokai needs. This is what Emike needs. This is what everyone needs,
Yeah.
except what Ola needs.
That's
Because,
what that's what
you know,
fell by the side.
yeah, Ola fell through the cracks, but every other ball was being held together. At
Yes.
what point did you realize that Ola falling through the cracks was not a good idea?
I think as I kind of got to the stage where, you know, as he started to get older and become a little bit more settled, and it got to the stage where it's like, okay, what are the next steps? And I then went through the process of accommodation and sorted out accommodation for him. But I found I was waking up tired, going to bed tired. I was tired all the time. I was running on empty, and it wasn't my mental health was beginning to suffer. I was sad all the time. I was all sorts of health ailments started popping up. I got to the point where I even had like a tumor on my pituitary gland and had to have, initially they were like, your medication for life. So I found I was becoming quite unwell, and I realized that if I didn't stop, I would stop. So I had to get help, both physically and even in terms of my mental health, you know. And I was happy when through my friendships, where a friend then said to me, you know, speak to Pastor B, you know, because she's quite down to earth. And I was like, you know, I don't want all this it is well type of conversations when it's not well, you know. And so it was nice to be able to just almost like get it out there, because it had been in for so long. So I used to call myself a volcano, that everything is on the inside and one day it's going to really erupt and the lava will go everywhere. So it was nice to be able to almost have a little bit of a controlled eruption, because it was not sustainable to just carry on that way.
Thank you, Ola. See, everybody is finding out what I've always known about you, that you are very orderly and very together and every together. But how were you able to maintain order in that level of chaos and mess? Because, oh gosh, I don't know that I would have been able to. Where did the strength come from? Where was God in all of this? Because sometimes when people are going through exactly what you said, we're very, it is well, it is well, it is well, it is well. And then others of us will roll our eyes when we've told you it is well 15 times. And the 16th time, you're not able to put yourself together because we just interpret it as you do not believe that it is well. So the question that I'm asking is, in all of this, what's beyond, okay, that your methods, your order, your capacity to, you know, put the details together and hash out a plan or a strategy, beyond, you know, your support system, your parents and your sisters, because I'm sure at night you went to bed alone. So, and now there was no husband in the picture to at least pat you in the back and say, you've tried today. Can I rub your feet for you or something? So what did you do? Where was God in all of this? That's my first question. Please let me quickly ask them. My second question would be, because in our sessions, you've told me about how Chini, you had to make sure that he knew how to do his laundry. Make sure you taught him how to make his bed. So you didn't give up on the child. You were determined that that child would be as much of a contributor in society as you could be, even if it's just contributing to himself. I know it's a method again. Share, because I know, for instance, that there is at least one person on this particular, in the audience today, who has a child who's nonverbal, who is also going through all of this. If you could share some everyday tips of what you did, please.
Well, in terms of where is God in all of this, at one point I would ask him where he was, that's that sort of thing. And there were times I would then look back and realize that I don't know how I did a certain thing, and I would know that it wasn't me who did it. It was just him who carried me. And my dad would always say, God is in control. That was his favorite phrase. God is in control. And I would say, I just believe that he was, because when I look back, sometimes when you're in it, you may not see it, but when you look back and then you realize the people he puts in your path, the fact that, when I even just preparing for this, at one point I wanted to chicken out because but just looking back and it made me think of the journey, and I realized how far I had come. But you sometimes, it's easy to look at a journey when when you're looking at what you've done as opposed to what is ahead. And I think at the time I kind of questioned where he was, because to start with, it's like, why me, and then afterward I would say to myself, when I ask why me, I would then reply to myself, why not, because should it be somebody else? So that's the why me question. Yeah, when it comes up, I would say why not, and then I would see people have got issues that are worse, and you look at it and you think, okay, I can still just about manage this, but there's some people who's like, I really can't manage, I've just handed him over to the state or something. So yes, it's tough, but when I look back at and see the journey of the various characters in the Bible and what they've gone through in one way or the other, Joseph would have asked, why me, when he was thrown into the pit, and then why me when he was now betrayed again by Potiphar's wife. So there are people who have gone through stuff and they've come out the other end. So I look at it as, God would see there's some things he delivers you from, and there's some things he sees you through. So if it's something he's going to deliver you from, he will.
Please, I want them to get that. There are some things he delivers you from, and there are other things he helps you through. Does someone get that, or I was the only one who got that? This is the point, because we're talking about believers who think that everything has to be hunky-dory. And so when it's not looking like we want it to look, we misconstrue that to think that God has abandoned us. So again, because Allah is a person of order and definitions, she realized that some things, because if God was going to deliver you from this, you would not have had Chini. Now you have Chini. Now you have the journey. So the journey was something you had to plow through, and God will help you through it. And it was not the point that God was going to deliver you from. So I'll put you on the spot. Tell me 2 things he delivered you from. And of course, we know this, that he didn't deliver you from. He walked you through. But I want you to drill it down. I want someone to understand. If they had to wake up tomorrow and think, what is God putting me through? What is God delivering me from? Well, how would you distinguish them?
Well, I think if you sometimes it's almost like you have to learn it as it's happening. If you've prayed for something, it's like when Jesus prayed for the cup to be taken from him, and he said, "It's your will." So when we pray and we say, "Thy will be done," if we really believe that will be done, then we can now say, "Thy will be done," as long as it's aligned with my will. So if we say that will be done and we believe it, then we have to look at it and think, well, if he was going to deliver me from something and he hasn't, then maybe there's something I'm supposed to learn from this and work my way through, rather than continuing to hold your cup out to an empty tap. So you might need to move to the next city and find water in the well. So I think it's one of those kind of things that you learn as you go along. You can't know for sure, but if you try and you say, okay, this, and then he then opens a particular door, and you see. So for me, looking at in terms of what was impossible that became possible, the fact that he was able to then communicate, that he was able to reach that, going for one of his events in school and seeing the program, and that he illustrated the program, and even in the house where he is now, the artwork is on the wall. So things like that. He has always loved to draw. We have a few artists in the family, and he got the drawing bug, so yeah. That's one of his cartoons there. So, and he has a unique cartooning style. So it's things like that. So you try to look for the positives rather than focusing on what he can't do. You look at what he can do.
I have to cut in again. I'm going to call it because you refuse to call it. And here I'm on this side of the device, so I can call it. One of the things God did not deliver you from was a failed marriage.
Yes.
But one of the things that he obviously, look at those drawings, helped you through, and he's helping you through, is a young man who is different and special, not by any stretch of imagination, less than any one of us. He's just different. His genius is different. His capacity is different. He's special in that way. And here's where maybe I'll talk to parents who have children with disability. The reason why they call your child special is not because your child is less. The reason they call your child special is because truly he is special. Inside of that, not the lack of capacity to speak sometimes, the inability to string words together. If you do the work like Ola did the work, because this is a lot of work, what you will find is that that child has an innate and special ability that will be a blessing to the world. So because of time, I want us to go back to Chini. Talk to me about his capacity to do laundry, make his bed, and how you moved him from the main house to assisted living, where he lives right now. And just tell us about his progress. And then maybe do that in like 5 minutes, then we'll come back and talk about Ola's progress as well. Because remember that we have also now rediscovered Ola, and Ola is on a road to talk to us about it.
Okay. Well, because he had special needs, I was concerned to make sure that he could do as much as he could. So unlike some of the other children that I would be like, you kind of let things slide. With Chini, I was very particular about making sure he could do as much as possible. So he would do his chores, he'd make his bed, he would do his laundry, he would do all that he needs to do, because I had the fear of, God forbid, what if something happened to me? How would he cope? As he started getting older, I started having those fears. And once I have a fear or something, I think, okay, how do you conquer that fear? Rather than continue to think what's going to happen to him, give him as much support so that he can be fine. You're not going to live forever, however hard you try. So give him that support. So yes, I taught him, and he's a very good learner. You teach him something and he picks it up, and he's very good at that. If he comes visiting me, I know that by the time he leaves, my bin will be empty, or the dishwasher, so he would just go around and look for what needs to be done, and he will do it. So it's important, because sometimes when in fact when a lot of the time when I speak to various workers, care workers or support staff, they say you make him do so much that sometimes we see people with special needs and the parents are just like, let me do everything for them, and it's not helpful for them, because even you wouldn't do it if your child didn't have an issue. So why would you do it just because they do? So yeah, so he's gotten to that stage where he's now living in supported living. I thought he would never ever be able to go out on his own, but he can go to the gym by himself, he can go swimming by himself, he volunteers in the charity shop, he goes there by himself. So, and those are things that I was told he would never be able to do. So even when you're given a prognosis or you're told this is what to expect, you can say, okay, all right, I've heard, but then still ensure that you let them get to the maximum of their potential. Don't be told because he can't read, then you don't even bother showing him letters. Still think, okay, let me still try. So you still try. Don't just the same way if you're given a diagnosis, don't just accept it. You say, okay, all right, that's what you've said I've got, but still reach out, still try your best. So I think I just kind of tried to push him to the limit of what he was able to do, and he's really done far greater than I would have anticipated.
So I see that what everything you've said is that when you find yourself in a situation that God will not deliver you from, after you've prayed and you've done anything, and God does not deliver you from it, then you need to accept that God is walking you through this.
Yes.
And in accepting that God is walking you through this, you have to come up with a plan. And don't take everything for it. I don't know, typical Christianese, God forbid, God forbid. Sometimes God forbid is not what you need.
Yeah.
And prayer is not what you are supposed to be praying. Well, not that you don't pray. Prayer that's the situation that you are clear that you're not delivered from. Prayer is not for that situation to change. What you need is a plan. What you need is to invest in other professionals if you can afford it. What you need is to entrench yourself and learn what your child or what the situation requires. Because you've just told us that they told you many of these things that Chini is doing today. You were told that many of them he would not be able to do. And yet he's able to do them. He's able to do them because you as his primary caregiver decided that he would not be so far behind from his siblings. He has to be able to contribute in the household. He will take out his trash. He will make his bed. He will do his laundry. He will keep his space clean. And now, even when professionals were saying to you that you were making him do much more than he was optimized to do, you knew that God had put more in. You may not have articulated it like this, but so I'm helping you articulate it post-mortem. You may not have articulated it this way, but somehow your mothering instinct knew that there was someone inside of Chini who could do all of this. And this would be so powerful if another parent here today, or any one of us, it doesn't have to be in the case of a child with special needs, would imbibe this process and recognize, number one, that if you prayed and prayed and prayed and it's not changing, the chances are high that there's no deliverance coming in the way that you've been praying. So now adapt, embrace or accept what has come and begin to put a work plan to it. Is that what you're trying to say to us, Ola?
Exactly, in a nutshell. And then use the gifts that God has given you. I mean, from a very tender age, my dad was somebody who was extremely organized. He had post-it notes and he taught us how, as far as he's concerned, you don't forget things if you write them down. So he would always, I would always have. I learned how to have post-it notes. I learned order from my father, and that really helped me in terms of being able to juggle everything. So I would, in fact, my diary, I had a pink pen to write. If I had to make an entry for my daughter, it would be a pink pen. It would be for my other son, it would be a blue pen. So even just visually looking at it, I would know where I need to be, what I need to do. So you would use the gifts that are within you to help your situation. So I have the ability to be analytical and organized. And so I used what I had to do what I needed to do. So God will give you certain gifts. And it would have been easier to have just given up at a point where it was too much. But for me, failure was not, or giving up was not an option. Like I said, it was almost a luxury to give up. And I couldn't because of what was at stake.
Okay, so now let's talk about the rediscovery of Ola. Talk to me about that. It's important that because I can see a lot of comments just applauding you for the amazing work that you had done and that you're still doing on this journey. But I remember that there was a time you did not see that you had done such amazing work. And I would sit there and I'll be like, I wasn't exasperated. I'm like, for real, Ola cannot see that she's super, that there is phenomenal, is what Audrey just called you. That you are someone who's just a standout on her own. Because when you allow yourself to fall through the cracks, and this is again for all of us, because we may not be where Ola is, but we all are somewhere. And let's not even begin to pretend that we all have it together. None of us does. Otherwise, we will not need God. When you find yourself in a place where it looks like, it's the world is against you, or is you against the world, what should you do? Do not fall through the cracks is my counsel that I will give to you. Make sure that you don't lose yourself in fighting everything else. But I mean, Ola, tell us. And Pearl, we're applauding you because Pearl is your sister, right, Ola?
My big sister, yes.
Please, thank you so much for standing by our Ola, and thank you for loaning her to me as your sister, as my sister now. So tell us, what should you do? What have you learned from letting yourself go and now doing the hard work of now trying to rediscover yourself that everyone shouldn't get to? Please share with us.
I think it's important to speak out. A lot of the time you're taught to just carry on, grin and bear it, keep on going, just pray and it will get better. So I think it's important to speak out or even to cry out. So at a point, I think I got to the stage where I had reached maximum capacity of what I could give, and I was beginning to crumble. And I thank God that I've got my sisters, and I've got very, very good friends. I've got childhood friends that I've known since I was 10, 11. But sometimes when you're in the middle of it all, sometimes you don't even have the luxury to actually talk about it. You just keep on going. So it was the point where I was at breaking point that I actually started to talk about it. And I then realized, it wasn't, I'm speaking to you. And then you would then say to me, flip the script, look at it this way, look at it that way. And sometimes you just need someone to give you a different perspective so that you can see that actually, you know what, you've done well, pat yourself on the back. That it's been hard, but you've come this far. So you don't get to the end of the journey and then collapse. You get to the end of the journey and like, okay, I've made it. And so for me, I think it was good that I got to the point where I could actually even stop and think, because and if I hadn't, it took even just you saying, talk about your story for me to actually sit down. And then I was not like, oh, you mean, okay, I did this. I actually read the details of the tribunal hearing properly for the first time yesterday. This is something that happened in 2010. And I was like, you did well, you spoke well at that hearing, but there was just no time. You just carry on. So I think it's important to stop and make time for yourself, because I was a footnote in my own life. So I think you have to stop and make time to really think and to see how far you've come, and to just be kind to yourself, because I'm quite harsh with myself. I'm very kind to others, but with myself it's like, you haven't done enough, you should have done this, you should have done that, and so I would be my biggest critic. So I think to be kind to yourself and to look at it as, it's a lot, to when I think about the journey I've been on and where I'm at now, it's been a lot. And then to crown it all, losing my parents within 6 months of each other. So it's been a lot. But sometimes people see me and they say, you don't look like what you say you've been through, and you just pray that whatever fire you're in, that you come out not looking or smelling like smoke.
So thank you. Thank God we don't look like what we have been through. Thank God we don't look like what we've been through. But I also want to tell Ola to tell us what's next, both for Chini and yourself, because I think now you are capable of seeing that the future is even brighter than you ever thought it would be. So what's next for Ola? What's next for Chini? Because we're going to be following you, and we're going to be following this story, because I know it's going somewhere. It's going somewhere powerful. And that both your story and Chini's story is going to come and impact a ton of lives as you let yourself, go loose in God's hand so that He can use you. But say in your immediate future, what do you see? What's next for you and Chini?
Well, for me, I think writing about my experience, even if it's to support others, would be a good way forward. Because when you're on that journey, especially when you start, it's you don't know it's something that you're completely clueless. So I think and God enabled me to walk through the process through, first of all, meeting Jackie, that speech therapist, and then obviously him getting into the schools and being on the board of governors of the school, understanding the way the system works. So sometimes people say to me, "Oh, they said my child should go here," and I said, "Did you say no?" And it's like, no, you can't say no, So just being able to give the support in terms of because you've got, like you said, you've got the other children, you've got so many other things going on. So being able to just somebody to walk you through the process so that you don't have to cut a new path when one already exists. So that's something that I think is quite important.
Let me echo that. Do not try to do it by yourself, especially when you are in the process of rediscovering yourself and you're moving forward. It's always important to find someone else you can hold their hands. These people necessarily are not better than you, not that neither do they know more than you. But there's something that a trusted perspective can do for you. It will be that it helps you to continue to take the steps, and it keeps you accountable so that you can take the steps. I've been telling people lately that, of course, we've walked this journey and we're walking it, that I'm big on Christian psychology. There was a time I didn't think that Christian and psychology went together, but I can see it now and the way it plays out in the lives of people. And it is important that you find your own person who would work with you. And definitely, I'm applauding and I'm, excited for the book, because again, that's another project we're going to work on if God gives us life, and I know He'll be merciful to us. So, all as we're rounding off because it's 8 a.m. already. Never enough time on this show. Tell us one thing. I want you to address Kate this morning, because Kate has a special child. I want you to address Kate this morning in as short a time as possible as you can.
Okay, well, Kate, it's important to know that nothing takes God by surprise, even if it does take you by surprise. So what you do is you read up all you can around what your child is going through, so that you can understand. Because once you understand something, the fear goes away, because you then think, okay, what can I do to help? What can I do to support? So you give the child the support that they require. You look at what can I afford? What will the system allow? So educating yourself is one of the biggest ways to remove fear. So you do that, and then you look at it as, okay, this is what they've said, but you know your child. You look at what are they capable of. You push them as far as they can go, and know that at the end of the day, it's a journey, and that God knows why God knows why He's chosen you to bring up that child, and that if He's chosen you to bring up that child, then He's given you what you need to bring up that child, and you can do it. So get the help that's required. Don't feel you have to be an atlas and carry the world alone. Get the support, get the help, get the rest, because sometimes you find that you're just tired and you feel, I can't stop until I get to the end. No, take breaks. Speak to people. You'll be surprised the support that's out there when you ask for it. As Pastor B has said, if you don't tell people you have a headache, they won't tell you that they've got painkillers in their bag. So it's your responsibility or your duty to reach out. If one person doesn't have a painkiller, somebody else will say, "Oh, I've got some." So your duty just to declare that you have that headache, and then not to say it is well and continue to suffer when you know you have a headache. It's not well, you have a headache, so you need some help. So get that help, and then things will be okay. Things will be okay. My dad would always say that to me. It will be okay.
My God, Ola says it is not well. You have a headache, so look for other Jesse. Tell someone you have a headache. Our time is up. Maybe somewhere down the road, as this journey progresses, we'll have Ola back so that she can share with us progress. And for those of us who have wondered why we didn't have a show in the last about 6 weeks thereabout, it is for this exact reason. I do not want to just hold a show every other weekend because it is important that I have a show. I'm doing this show so that the stories that need to be told will be told. So if you have stories that you feel like we should hear about and would be an encouragement and a blessing, reach out to me. If you know someone, they have to be in Christ and they have to understand that this is Christian and they want to share of their experiences, please introduce them to us. Ola, thank you. It took us a while to wrap up the courage to get here, but here we are. And you see, it went beautifully. Look at everyone telling you, well done, well done, well done, well done. Like I always say to you, you've done an exceptional job at doing what things that God has called you to. So you may not have been the path that you chose, there is a path that has suited you very well. And I want you to know that. We are grateful for you and for the lessons you've shared with us today. And everyone who joined us today, thank you for tuning in. I'm hoping that in another couple of weeks, I will have another episode of Naked at Sunrise for you. And if I do, you would know. It depends on the story, and I have to feel in my guts that the story is not made up, that is what God wants us to hear. Thank you. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Boss B. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.